Naoko Kinoshita, welcome to the Tokyo Lady podcast.
Thank you, Sam. It's very nice to be here. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you very much for coming on. Perhaps if you could start by giving the listeners and the viewers a bit of background on yourself, what you've done so professionally, and how you got to where you are now.
I've been a vet now for about 17, 18 years now. I started out after university. I started out in a clinic out in Chiba. I worked there for 10 years. My boss is my mentor. He taught me everything that's pretty much everything that I know, about veterinary medicine. He was a great teacher. He's an incredible veterinarian. So I was very lucky to meet him.
Yeah.
And then after 10 years, I decided it's time to move on. My boss and I are still very close, and I still go to him for advice and things like that. But it was just time to do my own thing. So I started working at this huge company called Eon Pet. They have about 60 clinics all over the country.
Yeah.
And they were looking for experienced vets to run some of them. So I ran a clinic in an area called Kamedo, which is on the east side of Tokyo. So I ran that clinic for 5 years, which was also an incredible experience. It taught me about looking after my own clinic, looking after my own staff, looking at revenue and things like that, which I never even thought about when I was working with my boss.
Yeah.
And then 5 years later, I thought, well, it's time to move on again. I really wanted to help the English-speaking community here because when I was out in Kamedo, we actually got a lot of calls and emails about care for their pets in English. There were pretty much no clinics that did that back then. So I really wanted to help bring this community, which is why I started looking for a building that would let me do a clinic in this area.
Great. And so all of your education was in Japan. Did you study abroad or work abroad at all at any stage?
No, actually, I went to a veterinary school right here in Tokyo. The training was 6 years. There's no internship or anything after that. So from the 6 years in uni, I just went straight on to working with my boss.
Yeah. And your English ability, so I mean, you're quite fluent. Where did you learn that?
I grew up in Singapore. My father's work took us all to Singapore when I was 3 years old. So, I moved to Singapore when I was 3, and we lived there for about 2 years.
Okay.
I went to an international school that whole time, so that's where I got my English.
Right.
Yeah.
It's interesting that you talk about learning to the business side of things from your previous employer. It's probably very similar to physiotherapy school. We don't have one single class on business management at all, yet a lot of physios will end up going into private practice. So it's always useful to work in an environment where you can learn some of that as well as obviously honing your technical skills. I guess also when you're training in veterinary science, is it, again, comparing it to physiotherapy, we undergo training in neurological physiotherapy and cardiothoracic. A lot of physiotherapists like myself will end up just going down that sort of pure orthopedic path. As a vet, I'm assuming that there's a lot of different, I mean, as everyone knows, there's a lot of animals in the world. To actually qualify as a vet, do you have to understand the sort of pathologies and treatment for all main animals, or does it sort of stream into specific animals like early on in the education process?
Actually, when we're in university, we do go over pretty much all the animals. We actually start off not with dogs and cats, but with farm animals, so more cows, horses, sheep, goats, things like that.
Yeah.
The anatomy and physiology and everything. And then we touch a little bit of the cat and dog side, but it's more focused on the farm animals, large animals.
Yeah.
So we didn't actually go into much on cats and dogs until our 5th or 6th year in university, when We actually started having classes on medicine, actual treatment of
Right.
things like that.
Yeah.
But I would say so. We touched a little bit on birds and everything else, but no, there's no really specialized course. You kind of go through it all, and then when you graduate is when you decide when you want to go into small animal medicine or large animal medicine. And so pretty much everything that you learn about working out in the field is from after your studies. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Are there vets that will sort of cover everything, or is it you basically you choose a couple of animals and then just sort of focus on that?
Um, I think it's most people will choose, especially because the large animals, it's a completely different anatomy,
Yeah.
and different sort of like racing horses. They're completely different purpose from what what we do for pets. So um, we do choose, and also just because they're just so different, it's hard to really know the details of every single animal. For example, I know nothing about reptiles, and so if someone brought a turtle into my office, I would be like, "No, sorry, I don't know what to do with the turtle."
Yeah. Sure. Sure. Yeah. And what made you decide to sort of specialize in dogs and cats?
Um, actually, when I when I was training, when I was in school, uh, I wasn't really thinking about cats and dogs until the last couple of years of my training. I actually wanted to be more like a marine mammal vet. I loved dolphins and whales and things like that. So I wanted to be a researcher out on the ocean, things like that. But then was writing my thesis and everything, I realized I'm not really cut out for research. And I've always loved cats and dogs. I've had loads of cats and dogs growing up.
Hmm. And so, what does your sort of day-to-day job entail? And what are some of the more common conditions you see, and what are the typical the typical procedures that you may have to do?
Um, well, so our day starts at 9:30. So the patients start coming here at 9:30, and then see patients until 12:30, and then go on to surgical procedures, which we do between 12:30 and 4. And then between 4 and 7, we see patients outpatient
Okay.
again for the afternoon.
Wow.
So yeah, people tend to ask, "Oh, where are you closed for so long during the day? You're taking a huge break," but we're actually not.
Yeah.
Um, well, some of the more common conditions depends on the season as well, but for this time of year, uh, we get a lot of stress-related gastrointestinal symptoms, for example, because dogs and cats are very sensitive to changes in the climate, for example, air pressure, typhoon coming through. A lot of dogs have diarrhea, vomiting, like that. So
Mm.
we
Okay.
actually get a lot of that. And then also because it's so hot and humid, there are a lot of skin issues. And then, of course, there's the regular inoculation, so vaccines, basic medication, things like that as well. It's also common. So,
And why are the animals sort of more sensitive than humans to the sort of pressure changes and typhoons?
I'm not sure. Maybe because they don't understand it. But I mean, I've heard that there are people who get for migraine, things like that. I think you're right. I kind of think maybe it's like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think dogs, especially dogs, are very sensitive overall to any kind of environment, whether it's changing climate or maybe if they're a treat that they're not used to, like you invite a friend over who they don't know,
Yeah.
any
That's true.
can actually cause them a lot of stress. And I suppose it's common in all animals, not
Yeah.
just cats and dogs.
Interesting. And so the patients, I guess the owners of the patients that you see, are they a combination of foreigners and Japanese, or is it mainly foreigners? Or?
It's I would say maybe about 30% are foreigners, at 30, 40, and then definitely over half would be Japanese.
Yeah, interesting. And perhaps if you could give a little bit of insight on maybe some of the ways in which that veterinary practice differs between Japan and overseas. I mean, are there foreign owners that maybe have different sort of expectations in terms of what to expect from a vet when they come here? Or are there, the common sort of differences in the practice, or even differences in the way that the owners or families interact with their animals or view their animals? Is there any things that you've noticed there?
I think pet owners in Japan kind of see their pets more as like their kids. So they treat them more like humans almost. It's kind of hard to describe, but of course, there's no difference in the way foreign pet owners and Japanese pet owners care for their pets. Of course, they love them and want to do everything they can for them. I don't think there's any difference there, but just the level of treatment or how far they want to go with treatment, I would say differs a lot. For example, if you had a dog with terminal cancer, they got to a stage where they weren't eating, weren't able to go out for walks, things like that. A lot of Japanese clients would prefer to still move ahead with the treatment, to whatever they can, for example, to fluid therapy at home, even if necessary, or um, get a catheter so that they can get some kind of nutrition if they're not eating, things like that. And I find that more my English speaking clients, they tend to focus more on quality of life. And if they're not eating, I mean, the basic needs of an animal to be able to eat well, go to the bathroom, interact with their owners, their family, go out for a walk, play in the park, those basic needs are just not satisfied when they're not eating, not able to walk. So uh, they tend to not uh, choose to continue with prolonging the suffering.
Yeah.
So I think there's a big difference there.
Really?
And I don't think there's any right answers or wrong answers. So I don't think either of them are right or wrong, but I do notice that there's a difference there between the foreign community and the Japanese.
Mhm. And are there any sort of differences in the actual treatment approach and the science that, as a vet, I know that from regionally there's differences in the way that physiotherapy is practiced. Do you see the same thing in sort of veterinary science at all?
Um, I think it's pretty much the same, but just depending on how where you've trained, or uh, uh, like for example, if I mean I because I learned everything from my boss, my treatment choices are the basis of what I know is it's what he taught me. Whereas another vet might have a completely different opinion. I mean that whatever the medication we use might be the same, but just the way we do it might be different. But I don't think there's any difference in region or country.
And for you, what are the things that you really love about the job? What are the highlights of your working day?
The highlights are one of the main things is that just interacting with the animals. I mean, I have 3 dogs at home, but just coming here, you see all kinds of. I mean, it's dogs and cats only, but they're just all so different. So just interacting with them, there'll be really friendly ones, there'll be really aggressive ones, really scared ones who just start shaking the minute you put them on the exam table. There's all kinds of different personalities, which is so interesting. And I actually also enjoy interacting with the owners because there's so many different people and the way they feel about their pets and everything else is just so interesting. So I really love that. And then there's the science of it, which is also it's always a challenge. You have to constantly keep yourself updated on treatment options. Medicine evolves pretty much every day. So I love the challenge of that too, the scientific side of it as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I mean, it's interesting. I tend to do this a lot on podcasts where I just compare everything to physiotherapy, no matter what. But I mean, a massive part of our job, I think this is in general medicine as well. There's a lot of quotes like, listen to the patient; they're telling you what's wrong with them. As physios, we're taught that you should be able to get a large amount of the diagnostic information just from a subjective assessment. Obviously, when you're working with animals, it's just a whole different ballgame because they can't tell you anything. They can't tell you what's wrong. But I'm wondering, though, I mean, I'm sure you can pick up with your years of experience on certain behaviors, and even though they're not actually vocalizing their problem, they are sort of speaking to you in the way that they behave and the way that they sort of communicate indirectly. Is that sort of the case?
Yes, I think so. Yes, obviously we can ask them what's wrong and they tell us what's wrong, but for example, even facial expression is really important. You can tell when, for example, a pet owner would say, "Oh, I think my dog's really sick," but you can tell from the facial expression that he's not really that sick, something like that. Or, um, yeah, it's more there's all kind of tests that we could run that would help us to diagnose whatever the animal has, but it's more about the animal even, and that's not just their facial expression, but just how they stand, how they walk. For example, a really sick animal would just lie down on the exam table, which is not normal because normally dogs and cats, they just all they want to do is jump off the exam table. So even subtle things like that is the dog or cat trying to tell us how sick they are. So,
Really interesting. And what are some of the challenges of the job? What are some of the toughest aspects?
um, yeah, I suppose the your previous question has a lot to do with it too. But a lot of the times we just don't know. We can do blood tests, X-rays, ultrasounds, but there's nothing that can diagnose, for example, a tummy pain or something like that. So, and then there's the expectation, because I suppose with human medicine, you take some medicine and then you know right away whether it's working or not. And then if it's not working, then you go back to your doctor and say, it's not working. Can we try something else? But the dog won't tell us that. Of course, the pet owner wants to believe that the medicine will make their dog or cat better right away. And when it doesn't, they get scared or anxious, um, and that actually affects the way the dog or cat recovers. So it's just the interaction between actually trying to treat the animal, um, and then also you're not just treating the animal, you're actually kind of also treating the owner at the same time. So that's the balance. It's really difficult sometimes.
And I can imagine, dealing with the grief for the families, when they're having to lose an animal, would be very tough as well. Um, I guess that's not a question. It's probably just an assumption, but I'm sure that's a tough part of the job.
Yes, it is. As I said, I mean, dogs and cats are they're members of the family. They're not just dogs and cats now. So when it's time to let your pet go, it's really emotional. And sometimes because it just happens really suddenly, so dog owners are not prepared. And it's kind of, I mean, it's in a way, it's normal that you have to say goodbye someday because we outlive our pets.
Mm.
It's 100% of the time. But even if you know that's going to happen, it's still hard. So yeah, we actually we do deal with that a lot.
And so, if people are that do have pets out here and they're looking to get in touch with you, whereabouts is your clinic?
We're located in Higashizabu, which is near Akabanebashi Station in Tokyo Tower, and we're right behind the Tokyo American Club.
Okay. And do you have we'll put all the details in our show notes, but do you have a website, and do you have any sort of presence on social media at all?
www.petlife.co.jp.
Okay.
Like, yes.
Fantastic. All right. Well, we really appreciate your time today. We understand you've literally just walked out of surgery, so you obviously got a very, very busy schedule. So thank you very much for coming on. It was really interesting to hear about your business and what you're doing. And yeah, like you said, the animals are really a part of people's families. So I think that the work you do is extremely important. So yeah, keep doing all the good work that you do. And thanks very much for your time today.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Sam.
All right. You too. Thanks, Uncle. Bye.